Hi, it's Dr. Barr, and I love me some histology. We're going to talk about adipose tissues. By the end of the session, I want you to be able to identify the types of adipose tissue and describe their structure and functions. Adipose tissue is a specialized connective tissue. The key cell is called the adipocyte, which is a mature fat cell. There are two types. You have your white adipose tissue, which is seen predominantly in adults, comprising 10 to 20% of body mass, whereas brown adipose tissue is seen more in fetal and newborn ages, 5% of total body mass. They can be seen in adults, more commonly in young adults compared to older adults, and these fat tissues have high amounts of mitochondria and capillaries. Let's discuss a little bit about the development of adipose tissue. White adipose tissue arises from the perivascular mesenchymal stem cells. There is this transcription factor, which is PPAR gamma, a peroxisome proliferator activated receptor gamma transcription factor that's complex with retinoid X receptor. And this triggers differentiation of the fats from an early lipoblast. Ultimately, over time, you will have fusion of droplets to form a single large droplet, which is the mature lipocyte. When we talk about the brown adipose tissue, it arises from skeletal myogenic progenitor cells. You have the expression of a zinc finger protein, PR domain 16, and a PPAR gamma coactivator 1 called PGC1, which triggers lipogenesis to occur. And you can see that again, it transforms from an early lipoblast. Now again, you have these numerous lipid droplets in the cytoplasm that distinguishes a brown adipocyte from a mature white adipocyte. I will talk about transdifferentiation later on, where these types of fat tissues can transform into one version or the other. Here are some examples of histologic features of white adipose tissue. Now, tissue sections are fixed and processed, so when we get the tissue slides, the fat actually dissolves away. But what we do see here is a unilocular cell with a peripheral nucleus. This is high power magnification here, blood vessel to compare, whereas here you have brown adipose tissue, low power view. It's very rich in vasculature. You here are some blood vessels, and you see the multiloculated fat globules within the cells. Tiny bubbles in the cytoplasm makes it brown adipose tissue, right? Multilocular. So what is the role of white adipose tissue? And to tell you the truth, fat is not white, right? We can see fat white being like lard, but fat in our body is actually yellow in coloration. And it's the main role of white adipose tissue is for energy storage, where triglyceride is the main currency. It can also secrete hormones such as leptin, growth factors, or cytokines. Leptin, I like to use the catchphrase leptin lowers, because elevated amounts of leptin lowers or suppresses appetite. It can also play a role in insulation and cushioning of organs. You can see it in subcutaneous fascia, breasts, as well as the surrounding internal organs. Heart, kidney. Before we move on, I just want to kind of recall again, have you envision how fat enters into the adipocyte and how it could be mobilized from the adipocyte for utilization, right? So when we eat something fatty, chylomicrons are absorbed from the intestinal tract and they are transmitted into the bloodstream. Lipids can also come from the liver, bound to very low density lipoprotein. Both of these will be transported from the blood and lymphatic channels coming to the adipose tissue. Once in the adipose tissue, you have your lipoprotein lipases will release your free fatty acids, which will be absorbed into the adipose site, right? And then you will have, again, this conversion of the free fatty acids into the actual triglycerides for storage. Now, if we want to have the adipocyte mobilize this triglyceride storage, right, we will have the norepinephrine activating this hormone-sensitive lipase, which will eventually hydrolyze the triglycerides into free fatty acids and glycerol. And this will eventually be released out of the adipocytes, entering into the capillaries. Once in the bloodstream, the free fatty acid is bound to albumin, and they will go down their merry way down the bloodstream. Now, brown adipose tissue can be seen in young adults, females greater than males, people who may have been exposed to cold environments as well. This is a PET scan which shows increased glucose uptake. And keep in mind that even though it's not showing fat, recall again that glucose is important for production of ATP. So what we see here is the distribution in the cervical neck region as well as the supraclavicular region. You can also see some in the paraspinal region. It's very vague, but there could be some paraspinal region there in this kind of scan. Very cool, huh? I love these three-dimensional scans. You can also see brown fat, which is not really shown here in this image, but you can have it in the periaortic, perihepatic, perinephric around the kidneys, pericolic around the intestinal tract areas as well. What is the function of brown adipose tissue? And the main role is thermogenesis, which means non-shivering heat production, regulated by norepinephrine and exposure to cold weather. When we look at someone who's been exposed to cold weather or cold exposure, there's a release of catecholamines, which causes activation of uncoupling protein 1. Within the mitochondria, there's uncoupling oxidation of fatty acids. Now, transdifferentiation is in adipose tissue occurs in response to the body's thermogenic needs. There can be conversion of brown to white adipose tissue. Remember, white is our energy stores of triglycerides. So this is especially necessary when body has increased energy store requirements. There's a conversion of white to brown fat. And we see this with animals that are about to undergo hibernation. The cold temperature causes increased stimulation of the noradrenergic sympathetic system. So you can see them kind of gaining, increasing the fats, and particularly that fat is going to be a brown fat. We can also see this with physical activity. This is a very interesting concept, and and I'm not an expert at it, but you can read more about it. Atrial and ventricular types of natriuretic peptides are secreted from the heart, which have an effect on the kidney, which then activate various transcription factors to produce your transformation of your brown fats. Now, keep in mind that one incidental finding is that brown fats are actually healthier. White fats are commonly associated with cardiovascular disease, diabetes mellitus, metabolic syndrome, etc. And so physical activity, I understand, would correlate well with brown fat transformation, which is a good thing. So just to recap, I've listed here the concepts of white versus brown adipose tissue, the role of, again, storage of fats into the adipocytes, the mobilization of the triglycerides right into free fatty acids, and how it can, again, be mobilized into the circulation. On that note, if you have any questions, need clarifications, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I will see you at the next lecture. Thank you. Bye.